Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another MMJ Let's Play of Sekimeiya. When we left off, we got trapped in this building and we still don't quite know what's going on yet, but I'm hoping we get some answers or at least find out what the motive is for this, right? Although that may be the underlying plot. I have no idea, but either way, let's see what we can find out. Okay, I'm hoping that whoever did this was stupid enough to get caught on camera before that happened, but we'll see. I know you're right, we're not the police, I just don't know who we can trust. Sorry, I was just trying to process everything. I didn't mean to be so quiet until now. I feel the same way you do. Maybe I feel worse, actually. I hate this. I want this to be over. Yeah, me too. Let's get going. I helped Shiroya to her feet, and we headed to where everyone else had gone. As if we'd stepped into another world, the lobby looked almost as if it had when we'd last been there. The lights weren't blackened, but some had been turned off, most likely automatically. Only a bit of smoke had sneaked through the gaps of the doors, forming a dark outline around them. That would have been all if it weren't for the metal shutter blocking the door we'd entered through. Aside from the reception desk, the only things of note in the room were the couch and cleaning bucket. Everyone seemed to have lapsed into silence except for Kate, who simply appeared as if he didn't know what to tell us. Oh, I guess there's no way we're opening that. Isn't it a bit too much? Why would they trap us like this? I agree that this looks over the top, but I'm afraid the same has occurred with every window of the tower. And all the blockades are designed to not let sound pass. We won't be leaving earlier than intended. I apologize that this has happened. This is a weird setup for this building. I just want to say, it doesn't make any sense as to why it's here. Okay, anyways. Can't you at least tell us why? Why is there a metal shutter here? This doesn't look normal at all. Yeah, seriously. My apologies, but as I said earlier, I'm not allowed to supply that information. But don't misinterpret me. Even though I could give you some details, I'm mostly kept in the dark when it comes to knowing the reasons. I'm only charged with making sure the system is functional, so I wouldn't be able to tell you about much of what you want to know. What are the details you know then? Look at it from our perspective. We can't stay in the dark forever. I understand, I promise. However, I can't say anything. Like, really? We all felt the need to sigh. Knowing information was being kept from us wasn't a pleasant thought, and it disrupted any cooperation we might have wished for. However, it would have been unreasonable to press the issue further. 12 hours it is then. After saying that, he walked up to the shutter and tried to move it aside to confirm that it was as sturdy as it looked. Of course, it didn't budge at all. Didn't budge at all. Shrugging a little, Sai turned back. Okay, I was like, I read that line already. The store wasn't closed, by the way. It was slightly open. Yeah, I saw that. And look, very little smoke passed through it. So, it was opened after the smoke was released? Yes, it was closed when we were knocked out. I was the one who opened it. I see. I looked at the other door. Although it was closed, it appeared that more smoke had gone through it. There was something else piquing my curiosity. Kate, you said all methods of escape were sealed. What are those? Or rather, how many of them are on this floor? On this floor, there's only this one. It doesn't have windows, so this is all that's locked. The other floors do have windows though, and they were fully sealed too as soon as the alarm went off. I see. I'd assumed that the smoke's goal was to isolate the event room, to have an easy path to it and obtain the gem, and then leave with it. But that's strange. Strange? I think that's the most likely scenario too. I say that because the lobby has been left alone. If the goal was to bring the Sekimeiya outside, why wouldn't they also release the smoke here? After all, 2 full hallways were attacked, so why not the lobby too? Yeah. If the goal was to bring the Sekimeiya out during all the confusion, it doesn't make sense that they didn't do it here. I don't know what released the smoke. I didn't see anything in the hallways, but this is a much bigger room. It could be that whatever method they used simply wouldn't have worked here. Maybe. If you wanted to block off the security cameras only to then be spotted in this hall, your plan obviously wasn't very well thought out. Could it be that leaving with the Sekimeiya wasn't the goal of the plan? Or maybe that they intend to do it later? Is it realistic to think that anyone could alert everyone with smoke, leave with this incredibly rare item and not be caught immediately? Even if the cameras were blocked, once outside, you're still one of the last people to exit and wouldn't be allowed to leave freely and unexamined. Okay, so I have two thoughts. One is, why haven't we checked the Sekimeiya to see if it's actually missing? The second is, they could plant it on somebody else, right? Like, you could plant it on somebody. We should be doing a search of everybody to see if the Sekimeiya is on them. Because if it's on them, either they tried to steal it or they planted it on somebody, hoping that they would be able to make it out and then retrieve it in a different way later. Anyways, there's something that comes to mind, and it's why I only asked about this floor's escape routes. The lobby was never used to escape. Now, Kateya says the windows on the upper floors are sealed, meaning if they are not, they provide a feasible way out. Keeping in mind that the alarm came late and that we never actually saw the Sekimeiya, could it be that by the time we stepped into the room, it already wasn't there? The culprit could have gone up a floor to escape through the windows. Kateya hasn't spoken about the footage of this time frame, so he might not have been looking at the cameras. Then again, even if the camera spotted the culprit, they'd be able to leave through a prepared window route and flee immediately once outside. Then, use an automated mechanism to create the smoke and lock the tower right before the Sekimeiya is ever shown to the public. For the people outside, this would make it look as if it's still in the building and entirely obscure the time in which it was stolen. We started our session a bit later than expected because Shiroya and I were slightly delayed, but even if we'd gone faster and seen the missing Sekimeiya, it wouldn't have meant anything to the person who'd successfully stolen it since we'd be locked inside. If I assume the cameras recorded the culprit leaving through the window, it doesn't make sense that the smoke would have been deployed. However, if they also had a way around those cameras using another method, it'd give off the illusion that someone who got trapped must be the one to steal the Sekimeiya, and only after the smoke showed up. After all, the lobby was left untouched, and no one would have left through it after the smoke had appeared. Okay? Since the alarm came later, whatever else the culprit did one floor above must have triggered it. Maybe the culprit triggered it purposely, which is why it didn't match the smoke's timing. That would be a great plan that ended in success. I might be deluding myself a bit much. I'm also assuming that they were able to get the Sekimeiya out of the cabinet without being noticed, which is probably too hard to believe. Not to mention Naomi unlocked the cabinet with her key, meaning it was locked by that time. So why did the culprit lock it after getting the Sekimeiya out, let alone have a way to do it? Is it locked? Do we check that it's locked? I believe it's far simpler than that, Sai. Kateya took a while to answer. While I'd been thinking, he also had. After all, the lobby doesn't have security cameras. What? I realized immediately that I'd gone too far and I got slightly embarrassed. Making up complicated theories was a habit of mine, but making a leap without even considering the facts was the last kind of mistake I needed to be making given the circumstances. Yeah, that's weird that you think all of this through and then you're just kind of like, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't the case. Regardless, that seemed pretty ridiculous. It was a big lobby, so even though I couldn't spot any cameras, I had figured they were well hidden. All of us frowned, doubting that decision. I know it might sound strange. Next to the main door are guards who inspect everyone who enters, making sure they don't possess any kind of suspicious item. For this very reason, the fact that a big quantity of smoke was somehow released from inside is already very strange. There's nothing of value in this lobby. The only way to access any valuable item is by entering the actual exhibition section through one of the two hallways. Why is there a yawn coming? There's no other way to reach the gemstones aside from these two doors. Since there are cameras in the hallways, the entrance to the valuables is monitored. Having them here is simply not necessary. What the hell? You guys are not very good at this security thing, are you? We have our reasons, but nobody could steal anything and leave without it being recorded. But it meant, with the smoke-filled hallways, that it was actually possible someone could have stolen something and left without being seen by the cameras, Although it was incredibly hard to believe that, once outside, they could have managed to leave with the stolen object, even more so after seeing how harsh the security measures were. Without a doubt, everyone who'd evacuated must have been searched to make sure they hadn't been in possession of anything suspicious. You said there's no way to make it to the actual rooms containing the gemstones. Then what about the door? She was pointing at a smaller door situated behind the reception desk. Oh, that leads to a room right under us. Past the door, a staircase goes to the room that stores the main boiler for the building, the electricity meter, the circuit breakers, and some pieces of furniture that we don't use anymore. Naturally, there are no cameras there either. It's right under us? Yes, the staircase is a semicircle, so in that room, which we call the mechanical room, is below the lobby. What about that computer? Can we use it for anything? No. As I said earlier, the internet connection has been cut. That's not all though. The alarm also disabled this computer so that people trapped inside couldn't look through its files. Is the door locked? It's not. Since it's right behind the reception counter, visitors can't enter it. I doubt the room could have been used for anything regarding this incident. Even if someone managed to make it inside, they would have needed a key to access the breakers. It's not like the lights went out. Would Naomi have that key? Naomi? No, that's not part of her job. I do have it, but I don't think I've ever used it. As a thought, we could power off the system in charge of the alarm and open up the exit. No, of course not. It'd be a big oversight if a thief could go there, force open the lid, and then break free. Not every circuit can be handled from that room, only the basic ones that power on the lights and such. Essential operations like the security system and maintenance functions can't be turned off. I see. With another escape method eliminated, our spirits sank. Meanwhile, Isla seemed captivated by our talk and stared at us intensely. What is that? She seemed to be looking at Shireya's neck. This? It's a pendant. I believe it's tanzanite, right? Yeah. Oh, it's really pretty. I want one like it. You said it's tanzanite? I really doubt that. It seems to be an imitation. They're very common. Is that so? I don't know. Shireya gave him a terse reply, obviously displeased. If it's not, then that gem must be worth an immense sum. It doesn't matter though. I really like it. Yeah, jerk. Isla, you wanted to say something else before, right? What is it? Yeah, we came here for the Sekimeiya, right? I just wanted to go see it. She glanced down, expecting to get scolded, but nobody reacted that way. There's no way it's still there, right? What even was it? Sai began looking at me and ended his sentence at Akaro. We hadn't mentioned that since we hadn't yet seen the Sekimeiya, so since I had freely spoken about it having been stolen, it was only natural he had assumed we'd seen it missing. Actually, we don't know. We never saw it. We were gonna check it when we woke up, but Irina's shout interrupted us. Are you serious? Shireya and Akaro nodded as well, and everyone else had the same look at Sai. It seemed they'd all assumed the Sekimeiya had been stolen. Yes, go look! Once again, without warning, Sai made his way out of the lobby. Isla was the first to follow him. No one objected, as we were all curious about what the Sekimeiya actually was and whether it would even be there. Watch it be there! Just watch it be there. I'm liking this music though. Shireya and I made our way back to the room where we'd fallen unconscious. Once Kate entered, our 7 pairs of eyes focused on the dark-colored curtain that blocked the view to the cabinet's interior. So you're saying that none of you saw behind this curtain before or after the smoke, right? Yeah, Naomi was about to raise it, but then the smoke appeared. People went quiet at the mention of Naomi. Given the alarm had played when she'd been there, her disappearance was very strange. Let's see then. What do you guys think? Is it still here? It was very hard to think it still would be, and going off of their expressions, everyone else agreed with me. I say it is. That would make things more interesting, wouldn't it? And I'm curious about how it looks. After those questionable words, Sai proceeded to slowly raise the curtain, exaggerating his own action. As the curtain was being raised, dust that had gotten stuck on it shook loose and formed a little pile on the floor. The major part of what the curtain was covering was clean wood that contrasted the stained room. Finally, a transparent pane of glass sheltering a cushion came into view. The curtain had been fully raised. Because of the darkness of the room, it took us a bit to see what was behind that glass. Let me see. Is it there? Sai, being next to the cabinet, was staring inside. We all got closer as well. Inside was a red cushion, a color that could have definitely looked beautiful if not for the lack of proper illumination. On that cushion, occupying a small space of it, was a white-colored sphere. Looking closer, it actually wasn't a sphere, but an egg-shaped stone. It shined very faintly. It was big and could easily be mistaken for an actual egg. However, we all knew it wasn't. Naomi had told us that it was an incredibly rare gem. Putting aside how simple it was, it looked very pretty and elegant. It's this, right? It wasn't taken. I told you, I called it! Are you saying this was Ashiya's big find? How can we be sure it's the real thing? It is. I've seen it before. I happened to spend hours in front of the security cameras. Isla looked dumbfounded and couldn't help but stare. How disappointing. I guess it still pleased all those other people, but I came here purely out of curiosity, and despite not having any kind of expectations, I'm embarrassed to admit I'm a bit let down. This can be as rare as you want to call it, but it's just an egg. An incredibly valuable one, apparently. And it's still here? What was all that smoke for then? You know, I said I'd hoped for this to be the case, but I'm not too sure anymore. This probably means that the culprit's plan wasn't actually all that elaborate. They might just plan to spend 12 hours with us, and then when it's time to leave, have an easy way out with this thing. And how exactly will they pull that off? I don't know, but it's practically impossible. What's happening doesn't have to do with this, right? The end goal must be to steal it, so this must mean that the plan isn't over yet. I'm not so sure. Hey Kate, do you know if Naomi was aware of the existence of that alarm? Naomi? She should not have been, but I couldn't tell you for sure. Why? Imagine this for a second. Naomi's job is perfectly positioned for this. She acted confused when the attack happened, but was prepared for the smoke. However, the alarm that locked her inside didn't factor into her plan because she wasn't aware of it. Atsuki, you said you heard an alarm a few seconds after the smoke was released. Do you know how many approximately? 20, maybe? So 20 seconds later, pretty much everyone else is unconscious and Naomi hears this alarm. By this point, she doesn't know that it's trapping her in her tower. If she had, she would have pretended to be unconscious until we all woke up. But she didn't. Instead, she obtained the Sekimeiya thanks to her key and left with it to proceed with her plan. I'm not sure how it continues now or how she intended to escape, but she realized that the exit had been blocked off. Kate said this was a very specific alarm that hadn't gone off before, so it makes sense that she didn't recognize the sound. Well, as she finished searching for an exit or a way to continue with her plan, she realized her only choice was to come back and play the confused card. But as she's coming back, she probably heard me opening this door and backed out. It's clear she's the most suspicious person in the building. It's possible she was listening to us and heard that we didn't look behind the curtain. By leaving before doing so, we gave her a chance to look innocent. When we were in the hallway, she simply entered the room again and placed the Sekimeiya back in the cabinet. Now it's possible we'll find her playing dumb or pretending to be knocked out somewhere, claiming she was disoriented and trying to assess the situation. It's impossible she's not trapped in here with us. I see. That would make sense. It could be very well that this top secret alarm only played whenever someone tried to get the Sekimeiya out of here, and that she hadn't been informed of it. Sai shot Kate a glance, clearly displeased that he had made the assumption based on the limited information. come on, we haven't found her yet. So, shouldn't you wait to draw conclusions until we do? For all we know, she's looking for a way out to help us. You're right. We can't assume that Naomi's responsible, and we need to establish something that clears her name a little bit. Even though you guys just tried to explain things with the delayed alarm, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Naomi's job was to explain everything about the Sekimeiya and to make sure the exhibition happened smoothly. An alarm that's triggered when the Sekimeiya is removed is something that she would know about, so thinking that she was unaware of it's pretty ridiculous. And while her position is convenient to orchestrate this, it also makes her a very strong suspect from the get-go. I can't be sure of this, but before the time I heard the alarm, I did hear the sound of a body falling, and given that all three of us were already down on the floor, it must have been Naomi's. On top of that, the glass hadn't been opened, so if she opened it while I was on the floor and triggered the alarm, I think I would have heard it. Not to mention how risky this is. Surely she would have waited until all of us were definitely unconscious to get the Sekimeiya out. This also implies that the alarm was unstable. Even if she triggered it by opening the cabinet, she had previously unlocked it. The alarm would have gone off when someone forced it open, not when someone opened it after unlocking it. However, there's one thing that's totally impossible, and that is that the Sekimeiya was first stolen and then brought back. Akodo seemed intrigued as to why I thought his idea was incorrect. Remember that curtain back then? Oh. I think I see what you mean. Yeah, because the smoke, the soot fell on it. The black substance had already dried on the curtain. Just now, as Sai raised it, a bunch of those particles fell on the floor, and almost none of them stayed on the curtain. So, it didn't move after you left. And it's not possible to touch the glass without moving the curtain. The Sekimeiya must have also been here when we woke up. It could be that Naomi brought back the Sekimeiya while we were still sleeping. That wouldn't contradict anything, since the substance might not have fully dried on the curtain by that point. That doesn't make sense either, though. She would have only done that if she hadn't accounted for the alarm, so if she gave up on her plan and placed the Sekimeiya back before we woke up, she would have also closed her eyes and laid on the floor as if nothing had happened. Exactly. Regardless of what exact events had been, the Sekimeiya was inside the cabinet. What had the point of the smoke been? What had triggered the alarm and what would happen next? It still felt surreal. Everything that had happened, everything that had suddenly happened. Can I touch it? What? No, don't. Isla has been staring at the Sekimeiya with an astonished face. Maybe because it seemed to be the core of everything. Touching it must have sounded almost dangerous. Why not? Naomi was gonna let us do it. Is this even open? It looks like the glass is shut. It shouldn't be. According to what Naomi said earlier, the key she had must have unlocked it. If it's open, you should be able to move the glass. Let me see. It's open, yeah. I can scroll the glass down. The glass had a little opening to put your fingers in and push it down. If the lock was open, we'd be able to move it. From the looks of it, it was not a very sturdy or wide piece of glass, so breaking it with force seemed possible too. Sai scrolled it all the way down, and we fixed our eyes on the Sekimeiya, no longer protected by any layer of security. Isla extended her arm slowly. Nobody except Irina looked concerned about her doing it, but I could tell that Shiroya was still agitated by the fact that none of them wanted to drop everything and find the missing person. Before Isla got to touch the Sekimeiya, she spoke. It's cold. You're right, actually. The air inside the cabinet is cold. Oh, right. I was told about this. Apparently, the Sekimeiya must remain in a cold place. This was a very basic thing everyone was told, and it sounded important. Why would that be needed? I'm afraid I'm clueless. This is why the temperature inside the cabinet is very low, though. That sounded interesting. For whatever reason, the Sekimeiya had always had to stay in a cold place, or at least that was what the Ashiya family had instructed. Maybe that was the reason why it had been left in the cabinet even after the attack. Do we check what happens if we get it out? What? Of course not! The Sekimeiya must remain inside this cabinet. We were very specifically told not to remove it or subject it to any kind of heat. But if you touch it, isn't that heat? I suppose it still contains duty to act according to the rules. If something happened to the Sekimeiya, there would probably not be a positive outcome for him, given that he was basically supervising us. assuming the blame didn't get shifted to Naomi for some reason, at least. If the Sekimeiya was actually left here due to the cold temperature, it follows whoever put the attack must have somehow learned of that requirement. Isla, who had paused her movement due to Kate's serious voice, continued moving her arm towards the Sekimeiya. In just a second, she was in reach. Her small hand was placed on top of it. Silently, she felt it for a few moments before letting out an amazed gasp. "Oh, it's very smooth. I love it." She started feeling it conspicuously with a smile on her face. "Is it? Naomi did say that touching it was part of the experience." Shiria joined her, evidently trying to make Isla feel better. "You're right. It feels very pleasant to the touch, and also really cold." "Worth all the advertisements and expectations?" "Yes. No, not really, but touching it is pretty relaxing. It almost feels silky." "Given our situation and the fact that Naomi is missing, we should let this be. I know we'll most likely be here for 12 hours, but this piece is very important, and we should not be careless." Sai and I were going to be the next ones to touch it, but we had to respect that. Without responding verbally, Isla and Shiria removed their hands from the cabinet. Kate's request was a reasonable one, and we still had more important things to think about. Even though 6 of us had come to see the Sekimeiya, only Isla seemed to have legitimately had a strong interest in it. I looked at the left side of the cabinet, expecting to find something. There was the keyhole that Naomi had used to unlock the glass. It says here, unlocked. This is how Naomi unlocked the cabinet, Kate. Do you know how many keys can open it? I don't know for sure, but certainly not many. I'm only aware of the one that Naomi had. So the only person who can open this is Naomi, who just happened to disappear and might be hiding somewhere. Stop assuming her intentions are bad just because we haven't seen her yet. We have to find her as soon as we can. Yes, but before that, we have to contact the outside from the security room. I would like to know what our situation actually looks like, and if Naomi went upstairs all by herself and chose to leave us unconscious. I won't be prioritizing her now. I guess so. Splitting up is probably a bad idea, but if she's not back when we finish, we really need to go looking. There wasn't really any other opposition. If Naomi intended to show herself to us, she would come back eventually. We worked under the assumption that she still had the cabinet key. However, if she'd ever fallen unconscious, someone could have easily grabbed it, maybe failing to recognize that the cabinet was already unlocked. If she had woken up as that happened, the culprit might have panicked and been responsible for her disappearance. But that was a worst case scenario, and not something we could easily jump to. It was true that contacting the outside was much more important. Let's go to the security room. That is where I work. We're very close to it, actually. It is beneficial to have it on the lowest floor next to the entrance. Kate closed the glass and gave us a look that once again indicated how precious of an item the Sekimeiya was. Subsequently, he opened the opposite door of the room. Past it was a very similar hallway. Like in the other one, the ceiling and the walls were stained by an ugly, dark color. It had been a while since the smoke's release, so the substance had dried up fully, letting more light pass through. Once everyone was with us, I peeked into one of the rooms in front of us. As Akoro had said, it looked clean, creating the same contrast as the lobby. The light worked perfectly, and there was almost no trace of the smoke apart from the small amount that had passed through the gaps on the door. It seemed the function of the room was only to showcase different kinds of gemstones placed inside the cabinets. I couldn't be sure though, as all of them were covered by curtains. It's that door. Without moving, Kate said those words, indicating that the single door that stood out. While all the others were normal wooden doors, that one was gray and looked much more sturdy. Once Kate approached it, we walked behind. On it was a nameplate with the words security room. Kate grabbed the doorknob, and upon turning it, he tried to push the door forward. However, it didn't budge. Oh, right. I locked it earlier. Let me see. You locked it? Yes, I have the key right here. Taking a couple of keys out of his pocket, Kate inserted one of them into the keyhole. This is an important room. When I left, I wasn't exactly aware of the situation, given I couldn't see through some of the cameras. I found it appropriate to lock the only room that allows communication with the outside until I knew more about what had happened. That was probably a good idea. With a simple turn, the door was audibly unlocked. Before entering, I inquired about something I found next to it. Oh, is this a map? Almost didn't notice it since the entire wall looks the same. Yes, it's a map of the first floor. The rooms labeled with a letter and number are what we call the crystal rooms. They're exhibition rooms where all the gemstones are displayed. I brushed off the dry dust and looked at it. Ooh, okay. As Kate had said, the map only showed the first floor's contents, and it seemed the stairs and an elevator would lead us to the others. It was the only floor that was unusually open to the public. So I'm like, ooh, map, I can do things now. So there were a large number of rooms to visit. We found ourselves in hallway A, next to the security room, and had much left of the whole floor to look through. As a notable point, the event room was the only room that connected both hallways apart from the lobby and the perpendicular hallway C. As expected, there were bathrooms too, so we wouldn't have to worry about that front. There's light coming from the end of the hallways. That means the horizontal one wasn't hit by the smoke, right? Yes, only these sections were. Kate, who'd claimed to have slightly inspected the floor, showed us exactly where the smoke had been released. So if one of the goals of the smoke was to disable the security cameras, they didn't use hallway C for anything. Yes, I looked at the live footage of it while I was in this room, and no one showed up. They still would have had 2 available ways to cross the hallways, though. Everyone looked pensive, including Isla, but they voiced none of their thoughts. The layout was pretty simple. Remembering it wouldn't be a problem, but we could always look at the map again. Kate waited until everyone was done examining it to open the door. Okay, so what I'm going to do since we just entered the security room is I'm going to go ahead and leave this episode right here, and next time we'll start scrounging around in the security room. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys on the next MAMJ. Lots of fun.